Hello friends, for today's video we're going to be looking at some anticipated fantasy releases for the month of August. For June and July, I had split the anticipated releases up into two parts, just because there were so many books coming out in those summer months, but for today, we are going to be going through all of August in this one video. However, I am going to be doing something slightly different because of the fact that there are so many sequels coming out in August, and for a lot of works that I haven't read the first installments of or previous installments of, I can't really elaborate too much on those sequels. I still wanted to mention them though, as I know a lot of you will likely have read the previous installments of these series and you might appreciate a heads up that the sequels are projected for August. So I'm actually going to start with those sequels. We're kind of going to rapid fire go through them. Then from there, we'll jump into new works that are first in series, standalones, those sorts of things. First of the sequels, we have Born of the Iron Storm. This is a new Anthony Ryan work. I have read two books by Anthony Ryan, one of which was Bloodsong, which I loved, and I am just behind on a lot of the works that have come out since Bloodsong, but I do have my eye on the series. I hope to get to it at some point. If you are somebody who's checked out the series thus far, I'd love to know what your thoughts are of it, but the sequel is projected for August. We also have The Last Soul Among Wolves. We have Lord of Ruin. I believe the first book in this is Mistress of Lies. We also have The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk. If you haven't checked out the series before, the first book is The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and there are a number of other works that this author has put out since then, and because of the fact that this author started self-pub and then eventually became traditionally published, I think sometimes releases can be a little confusing because sometimes things were previously out, other times it seems like this is a newer work, but we do have this one coming out in this month. We also have Alchemy and A Cup of Tea. This, I believe, also started self-published and has been traditionally published since, so this is a similar situation to the previous one. I have read the first one in this series. I'm not sure even if that's the way to categorize it, because I'm not sure if it's like a series of standalones or if it's a more traditional way of applying the word series when describing something. The first one is kind of a cozy fantasy story, and I am interested in continuing on at some point, but I haven't read the second one. I believe this is the third or fourth at this point, but they are coming out rather close together, I think due to the fact that they previously were indie. And then we also have The Dragon Wakes with Thunder. So a number of sequels coming out in August. If you're interested in any of them, now you have the heads up that they're going to be coming out soon. Going back to our traditional way of navigating anticipated releases and starting with August 12th, the first book for this would be The Bone Raiders. This one sounds like so much fun, and the cover definitely reminds me of the Kings of the Wild. I'd actually be curious to check out if it is the same cover designer or if they were inspired by that cover, because it has a very similar look. But anyway, it says it's the start of a no-holds-barred action-packed fantasy. And the synopsis says, "You don't mess with the Rakata. The people living in the great grass call them the Bone Raiders, from their charming habit of displaying the bones of those they kill on their horses and armor. But being a raider is tough these days. There's a new high chieftain ruling the grass. He's had it with the raider clans and plans to use his sizable military to do something about it. And then there are the Araton, fire-breathing lizards the size of elephants. Sayana is a Rakata scout, and in the chaos of the raid gone wrong, she finds herself on the back of a rampaging Araton. In a panic, she discovers she can steer it. Once Sayana gets an idea into her head, it's awful hard to dislodge. And now she has a doozy. What if the Rakata could swap their horses for Araton, train the lizards to act as mounts? That would even the odds against the High Chieftain." So it's very cheeky of a synopsis, and I think that there is an element to the quality of the cover that speaks to that as well. And I find that books that are kind of self-aware and playful and witty, I sometimes end up really, really, really enjoying them and loving them. And sometimes they can lean a little too much into it where I start to not feel like I can take anything seriously and I don't find myself really invested and it's not entertaining enough. It's just kind of the same bit over and over again. So sometimes it can really work and sometimes not as much. After that, we have a new Bridget Kemmerer book, Warrior Princess Assassin. If you don't know, Bridget Kemmerer for quite a while has been writing young adult works, and a lot of people really like the romantic plot lines within those young adult works. I believe this is the first that is actually adult. So if you are a fantasy romance fan and you like Bridget Kemmerer's works, but you're like, I want it to be more adult, I think that's what you're going to be getting with this one. 3 characters torn between chasing, betraying, and craving each other. A princess caught between duty and desire, the fearsome warrior king she's promised to, and the assassin tasked with hunting them down. So the title of Warrior Princess Assassin is kind of like 3 words to describe this book. That's the title. It sounds like that's exactly what you're going to be doing, is following these 3 characters. And I will be curious to see how this author writes an adult fantasy work. Switching now to August 19th, one of my most anticipated releases, we have a T. Kingfisher book, and that would be Hemlock and Silver. I have yet to read a T. Kingfisher book that I have disliked. I have never hated any of their works. Some of them I don't love, but I've never hated anything. So I feel like everything always at least is sort of a safe bet for my taste, and I really enjoyed A Sorceress Comes to Call. So I can't wait to see what this author does with this story. Healer Anja regularly drinks poison, not to die, but to save, seeking cures for those everyone else has given up on. But a summons from the king interrupts her quiet, herb-obsessed life. His daughter Snow is dying, and he hopes Anja's unorthodox methods can save her. Aided by a taciturn guard, a narcissistic cat, and a passion for the scientific method, Anja rushes to treat Snow, but nothing seems to work. That is, until she finds a secret world hidden inside a magic mirror. This dark realm may hold the key to what is making Snow sick, or it might be the thing that kills them all. I also have been bringing this up on this channel a lot lately, even though I think most of you don't care, but this is a little bit reminding me of Apothecary Diaries, and not just because there's poison, but just the way the character is described. I love anything that even remotely, or I shouldn't say I love anything, but I am intrigued by and interested in anything that even remotely reminds me of Apothecary Diaries, and it's T. Kingfisher, so I can't wait. I'm so excited for this one. Also on August 19th, we have Eternity's Blade. The comp titles for this one says Mistborn and She Who Became the Sun. In the secluded paradise of the valley, life is eternal. Stolen from the courts, trained in martial and magical arts by enigmatic warrior monks, Shishoro is reborn as an assassin, ready to defend against the mythical outside. But echoes of his lost mother and the ethereal allure of a doomed princess leads him on a path to discover the valley's dark secrets. Now, as war dawns, Sessoro must decide, is paradise worth protecting, or must eternity itself be ended once and for all? That's a really good synopsis, at least for me, in that I'm like, I don't quite know what's going on, but I'm very interested to find out more, which is exactly what I want out of a synopsis. I feel like so many RPGs are like, this story follows this character, and this is the plot. And then partially through, you're like, are we going to destroy some greater being or force? And then suddenly it becomes this enormous undertaking that is apocalyptic in nature. And I'm getting a little bit of hints of that, which actually I can see why that would be compared to Mistborn, because I feel like Mistborn's stakes just keep getting bigger and bigger. But we'll find out. That sounds so good. And I think that the cover is quite inventive. After that, we have a book called Voidwalker. Fiona Mara is a smuggler. Antal is the reason her people fear the dark. Fee ferries contraband between worlds, stockpiling funds and stolen magic to keep her village self-sufficient, free from the blood sacrifices humans have paid to Antal's immortal species. Only legends whispered through the pine forests recall a time when things were different, before one world shattered into many, and the flesh-devouring beasts crept from the cracks between realities, with their sable antlers and slender tails, lethal claws, and gleaming fangs. Now, mortal lives are food to pacify their carnivorous overlords, exchanged for feudal protection and the precious silver energy that fuels everything from transport to weaponry. When Fee gets planted with a stash of smuggled energy, a long-lost flame recruits her for a reckless heist that escalates into a terrorist bombing and a coup against the reigning immortals, with Fee's home caught in the crossfire. She's always known the dangers of her trade and of the power she's wielded since childhood, allowing her to see the secret doors between dimensions to walk the void itself. But nothing could have prepared her for crossing paths with Antal. For the deal she'll have to make with him, a forced partnership to reclaim his city that begins as a desperate bid for survival, only to grow into something far more dangerous, a revolution and a temptation for how sweet the monster's fangs might feel. This one has a number of comp titles as well that are pretty intense. Like, it says the Cosmere, and then it says Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, and I'm like, that's a lot of different things. And some of those feel similar and some of them don't really feel that similar, and also those are some of the biggest names. So they do tell you, if you're a person who's trying to get an agent, that it is advised that you give accurate comp titles and that you don't just throw out any really popular work. So I am kind of amused that it's like the Cosmere meets Sarah J. Maas meets Rebecca Yarros. But I'm also intrigued because this author, another work of theirs is The Phoenix Keeper, which is very different than how this one is described. That one's kind of like cozy slice of life fantasy, and this is very much not that, which is always fun when authors take chances on other things. So it could be something that a lot of us really, really enjoy. I will be curious though, if I at any point pick that one up, I'm curious to see the comparisons. Now switching to August 26th, Katabasis. This is the new R.F. Kuang work. Apologies, I feel like there's always at least one book in every anticipated releases where I end up not wanting to read the synopsis because I don't want to know too much going in, and that is true of this one. I know that it's got this almost like Dante's, yes, I see it in this. It's got like a Dante's Inferno vibe. The comp titles are Dante's Inferno meets Piranesi. That actually isn't the best sell for me, but I will be curious to see what this author does with these concepts. And I, at the very least, always feel like there's a lot of thought and effort put into the works. I just have always felt like there are pieces, like everything's so close to being really, really working for me. And then there's always something that ends up kind of keeping a lot of the works from being absolute standouts for me personally. Obviously, for a lot of people, this author's works do turn out to be standouts. But I am always interested. I like the writing. I like the thematic elements. So I will be curious to see more about this one. Last for today, we have This Vicious Hunger. It's a dark gothic fantasy of intoxication and obsession. Thora Grieve finds herself destitute and an outcast after the sudden death of her husband, but a glimmer of hope arrives when a family friend offers her the chance to study botany under the tutelage of a famed professor. Once at the university, Thora becomes entranced by a mysterious young woman who emerges each night to tend to the plants in the private garden below Thora's window. Hungry for connection, Thora befriends her through the garden gate, and the relationship quickly and intensely blossoms. Thora throws herself into finding a cure for the ailment confining Aaliyah, the woman that is in the garden, to the garden, and sinks deeper into a world of beauty, poison, and obsession. Thora has finally found the freedom to pursue her darkest desires, but will it be worth the price? I'm trying to figure out if there's a trend of plant botany poison in some things. I know some people have pointed out that there's like a Lady Night trend that seems to be present in a lot of releases as of late, and I'm kind of picking up from some of the anticipated releases that we go through that kind of seems like maybe this is becoming a trend as well, which I'm not opposed to. I actually like that concept. But that's it for some anticipated releases for the month of August. As always, all relevant information will be in the description bar down below. Feel free, of course, if there's anything that I left out, to mention that in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, though. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.